Hello, friends, and welcome to the Powerful Podcast. I'm your host, AJ McCord. In this podcast, we introduce you to powerful women who are changing the game in and outside of their field of play. These are women's stories, women who happen to be doing things that many of us can only dream of, but the lessons and inspiration they share is universal. Welcome back to the Powerful Podcast. I am so excited because this episode is the perfect one for this Women's History Month. This is a woman who has made some history here for Team USA and is continuing to do so by making a difference for the next generation of Paralympic athletes. Alana Nichols is the first American female to ever win gold medals in both a summer and a winter Paralympics or Olympic Games. She is a 5-time Paralympian, 6 medals to her name, and 2 years ago in her third sport, no big deal, she got the first ever perfect 10 at the Parasurfing Championships out at Huntington Beach. This woman is a badass, and we talk about the audacity to believe in yourself and how that lesson has manifested, it has morphed, and it has become kind of a bedrock for everything that Alana has done with her life since her injury that left her paralyzed at 17, how she continues to have that audacious belief in herself as she works to change the world for Paralympic athletes all over it. So this is an episode that left me feeling inspired. I hope you feel the same way, and I cannot wait to hear what you think of it. Thanks for being here, Pod Squad. So Alana Nichols, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Hi, friend. It's good to be here.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited you're here. So Alana, we first got to know each other when you were training for Sochi, which is one of the Winter Paralympic Games that you went to as an Alpine skier, but you also did the Summer Paralympics in basketball as well. And then you had surfing's first ever perfect 10 at the Para Championships, I believe 2 years ago, 2023 was when you did that. You are one of my favorite inspirational badasses that I have ever gotten a chance to work with. So I'm so excited that you're here.
Well, the feeling is very mutual because we were watching Pipeline sitting there as you were interviewing Tyler Wright after she just won. And I go, AJ used to interview me in the finish of the ski races in Winter Park, and look at her now. And yeah, it was just, so feelings mutual.
It's been so fun to see how life has changed since, because I was just out of college when we were first interviewing you for the Sochi Games. You were so deep in the Paralympics, and it is incredible the history that you have made within the Paralympic community. So I guess I just want to start with, how does it feel to be the only American woman to have ever medaled in both the summer and the winter games? How does that crown hold?
It's cool to be able to just metabolize the idea that I made history. Who gets to do that? The timing was amazing. I'm not the only one, just as a technicality. I'm not the only one that's ever medaled, but I was the first female American to win gold in the summer and winter. So, that was incredible. It's kind of a long story. I'll keep it short, but I was an athlete my whole life. I played 3 sports growing up. I got really excited about snowboarding. It was like this new outlet. When I was in junior high, I got to get creative, and I've always been a risk taker, so it really kind of scratched that itch. And then my senior year in high school, I was out backcountry, was being a risk taker with an underdeveloped frontal lobe, as most 17-year-olds have, and decided to try my first backflip on a snowboard, over-rotated, broke my back on a rock that was under the snow, and naturally thought I would never be an athlete again. I didn't know anything about adaptive sports. There weren't social media and things like that. And so, to not only be able to get back into sports, which was life-giving. I mean, movement is medicine. I got really depressed for about 2 years before I was able to move my body again. But I started playing wheelchair basketball and just felt alive. I felt like I was running again, got my heart rate up, and with that heart rate, I was able to start thinking about bigger things, you know, investing in my education and going forward with like life, you know, I wasn't stuck anymore because I started moving and then, you know, got to go to college on wheelchair basketball scholarships, graduated from the University of Alabama, went to the Beijing Games, won a gold medal, and then set this ridiculous goal of starting ski racing and going to 2010, 2 years later. Like, who does that? You know, it's like ridiculous. And to this day, I love to say that that's ridiculous because if I hadn't dreamed that big, if I hadn't reached so far, I would have never done it, you know? And I really
Yeah.
encourage people, you have to dream big, like set ridiculous goals. I mean, and it's like that saying, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll land it amongst the stars. Like, what's the worst that could happen with a big goal? Excuse me.
Hmm.
So, anyways, back to your question, like, how does it feel to make history as the first female to win gold in the summer and winter? It was like unbelievable, you know? It was like I never thought, you know, as a 17-year-old girl laying in a hospital bed that I was ever going to be an athlete, let alone make history. So, oh, life, here we are.
Oh, life. Some of us are just like putzing along, and you are setting ridiculous big dream goals and achieving them. And it's one of the things that I think drew me to you when we first met was just there is this belief in yourself that, I'd be curious to know if you think it's the same belief that led you to believe you could do the backflip straight up like first time on the snow, right? But it's an audacious belief in yourself that why not me? Why can't I go out and do this? And I'm curious where you think that came from. Where do you think you developed that and continue to do it? Because it's one thing to be like, okay, cool, I'm going to be the first American female to win a gold in winter and summer. Okay, check that box. You didn't stop. Like you continue to go out and make history even just 2 years ago. So where does that, I'm going to call it an audacity to believe in yourself. Like where does that come from?
I love that audacity. Such a spicy word.
It's one of
Um,
my favorite words. I put it
yeah,
everywhere I can.
audacious. You know, I credit a lot of my like grit and toughness and like independence and audacity to my grandma who raised me. Partly because she was all those things, but also partly because she was kind of hands off. She was kind of like, whatever you want to do with your life, I totally believe in you, but like, you don't have to do anything. And that in and of itself was the challenge. Like, oh, okay.
Mm,
You know, like I think if I had a parent or a guardian that was pushing me and forcing things, it would be so different. But since the challenge for me was like I am open to the possibilities, you know? And so with that kind of mindset, I feel like that's where the audacity comes in because there's nothing holding you back, there's nothing pushing you. It's like the opportunities are limitless, really. And yeah, I think you're dead on by saying like the same thing that kind of landed me in the wheelchair is the same reason I'm like a gold medalist, right? I'm a risk taker at heart. I want to just see where the line is. Just gonna dabble on the edge. If I fall over, I'm tough enough to get back up. And like a lot of the times, you know, it was like I knew that I was gonna learn something either way. I know
mm,
that every time I fell in a ski race, I learned how to get back up and do it again. And so it's like when you are in a win-win situation, you're most likely to win, you know? But if losing is gonna devastate you, then it's like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of energy happening when you step up to the plate and you swing away, or if you
mm,
step up to the plate trying not to strike out. You know, that's the
yeah.
difference. And so for me, it was like, swing away, swing for the fences. Let's see what happens, you know?
And I'm curious because I remember talking to you, I can't remember if it was before 2020, well, what ended up being 2021, but that's a lesson you've had to apply multiple times throughout your athletic career, I would imagine in your personal life too. But you not only did you like get up when you were 17, you got up multiple times once you became a ski racer because you suffered some gnarly injuries once you became a Paralympic athlete. How do you feel like that lesson sustained you and maybe morphed into the lesson that you needed in a different way over and over again over the last 15 years?
Yeah, it's that's very philosophical of you. I love that because I love to be philosophical about it myself. And I really feel like in my 20s, I was just so willing to risk and sacrifice
Mm,
and push the boundaries. And it's interesting to look back and see how I evolved into somebody that I don't think was honoring how I was feeling and or didn't really know how to feel, right? In my 20s, I
mm,
was really numbing. I was kind of like, I am, paralyzed for the rest of my life. And I want to have this, I really leaned on the identity of being an athlete and like succeeding, right? Like that was what was holding me together. And then when I got into my 30s and I got sober and I started feeling, it was less about I don't want to sacrifice my body as much as I want to preserve myself and how I feel. And so
yeah.
ski racing naturally and organically just kind of worked its way out. It was like I just don't want to do that anymore to myself. And I look, I'm an Aries. I will hit my head against something until I figure it out. And I broke my shoulder backwards. I was working with one limb at one point after dislocating it, and having to have surgery. And that was so hard. And so the lessons were experiential, trial by fire is kind of my move. And so, yeah, I just naturally worked into this place of like, I am not willing to sacrifice my body anymore. And after Sochi and smashing my face on the ground there, it was like, I think I really am ready to move out of this, ski racing scene. And it's interesting how when you are actually ready, like, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I was like, I'm ready. I don't know what's next. And naturally, surfing entered my life and changed it forever. I like to say it ruined my life. I had to move out to California. I had to surf every day. And like, it was so healing and so important for me. And yeah, it was really important to honor my body and just I didn't know what was next. It was obviously really scary when you are
Yeah.
reliant on an athletic career for your insurance and income and all the things. And so, yeah, but I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, surfing was life-giving for me.
And it feels like bravery just in a different form, right? Like it
Hmm.
was one kind of brave to be sitting in a hospital bed at 17 and say, I'm going to choose to believe that this doesn't mean my athletic career is over. I'm going to be brave enough to go pursue that. But then it's like a whole different type of brave to be like, dang, this athletic career has defined me and ruined me and given me everything and taken everything. It's like done all the things. I have to be brave enough to believe that there's something else. And it
Hmm.
just feels like you've redefined what brave looks like for you at different stages of your life.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It's interesting to look back at all of those big risky decisions and how the unknown has never let me down. It never has.
Mm,
It's so scary. And for anybody listening that's at that transition point, whether, we all go through this. Like it might not be as big as breaking your back at 17 and becoming paralyzed, but everybody goes back to square one at one point and it all melts down and you have to begin again. And, it's just this cycle that we go through in life. And
yeah.
when you're brave and you trust and you surrender and you believe, like that's the most important thing you can do because ruminating on whatever bad might come, it's just not going to help. So
No.
I think over the years and over the experiences that I've had, I've just learned to be more mindful. And that
Mm,
means actually getting quiet and meditating and actually like not thinking I control everything because I don't.
Yeah. Which is so annoying. I have to learn that lesson all the time. Like
Totally.
I'm like such a control person. I love being in control. I love deciding what I'm going to do. I love all these things. And then I like every once in a while, it's just like the rug gets pulled out from under you and you're like, dang it, not in control. I like really thought I was this whole time.
Nope.
It's
Nope.
the worst.
It's an
And I
illusion.
think it's such an illusion, and it's I think that is the thing that I will beat my head up against the wall until the day that I die. Like I
Totally.
will hold on to the illusion. That is my constant thing, is like giving up the illusion of control. And I think what you said about everybody has to go back to square one, and maybe it's not something as life trajectory altering as breaking your back and becoming paralyzed, but it results in the same feeling, that same like, whoa, when it all gets stripped away, who am I? What
Hmm.
am I? What do I want
Hmm.
to do? And like, for me, one of those moments was when I decided to go freelance, when I
Hmm.
decided to start the Powerful. It was like, whoa, I'm walking away from a really good job that's not fulfilling me anymore. Like I'd gotten to cover Super Bowls and, massive moments in the NBA and college football, and it was just looking around and going, but it's not giving me the life that it once was. And it's okay that like what once was giving you life isn't anymore. But I looked around and I was like, I don't know what the percentage is of people. I know I sent out hundreds of applications when I first was looking into jobs, and I got back like one response. And then I don't know what, like, so it's already a small pool that you're working in. And then the number that go from full time to freelance, there were so few examples of
Hmm.
people that it worked out for. And there were even fewer examples of people that it worked out for who wanted to be in like action Olympic sports, because these are hard sports. They're
Hmm.
hard to get into. There's not much media coverage of them. And thank goodness that's changing. But it was
Hmm.
like, I had to just look at it and be like, hey, if it doesn't work out, the one belief that you can hold on to is that you'll land on your feet and you'll figure it out. And that's like the only thing that, control what you can control.
Hmm.
The gymnast in me figures out how to land on her feet, and
Yeah.
that's like the scariest thing, but it's so necessary. And now I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't have changed it for anything. And I love the reminder that like the unknown has always worked out.
And look at the powerful in you, because you're the example, you're leading the charge, you're setting the
Mm,
stage for the next woman to go freelance and follow her heart, right? It wasn't fulfilling you. You needed to do what felt good to you. Like that's powerful. That's so
mm.
important. Yeah. And it's
And
scary. You're right.
so scary.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
scary. Well, and I think honestly, Elena, that's like one of the things that I'm so proud of this podcast for, is it's bringing on women like you who are that example in their lane, right? Like someone is sitting in a hospital bed not as scared because of
Mhm.
your story. And that's incredible. Like that's, my gosh, you're changing lives just by being audaciously believing in yourself, which is just, I think, one of the coolest things. And one of the full circle moments for me of watching you all these years was when you went to Paris last year and you got to host the Team USA house. And Paris last year was like, for those of us who have been following the Paralympic movement, who have been watching the Paralympics, living the Paralympics, last year felt like my gosh, some ceiling shattered, because
Mhm.
the Paralympics got the attention, started getting the attention that it rightfully deserved. How was it for you, as somebody who has competed in the Paralympics for 2008, so math is not my strong suit, 17
Yeah.
years ago was your first Paralympic experience. How did 2008 compare to covering it in 2024?
Yeah. Mm. Very astute observation, because back in 2008, you couldn't catch a live Paralympic event on TV. You just couldn't.
Mm,
There was an hour special after the games that was tied in with the Olympics, was like very much an afterthought. If you wanted to watch a family member compete in the Paralympics, you needed to go. And that was in China. And my family didn't go. And I won my first gold
yeah.
medal without anybody there or anybody like living it with me, right? 2010, kind of the same story. It was like we're building in the right direction. But again, it was like I won 4 medals there, and like the coverage was just limited, and there weren't, um, it wasn't this beautiful NBC partnership with Toyota that provided the most amount of hours that we've ever seen. It was like a hour special 2 weeks after the
Yeah.
games ended. It was like really like there used to be this thing that we talked about after the games called the Paralympic letdown, because we
Mm.
would we would be on this high. We would be, oh, there's that light. Sorry. We would be on
It's
this
okay.
high at the Paralympics. Like we just accomplished this 4 year, sometimes 8 year in the making goal. And we'd come back to the States, literally land. I'll never forget coming home from China, and the flight attendants were like, "Oh, you're part of the Special Olympics?" And I'm like, actually, no, the Paralympics are the Olympic Games for people with disabilities. They happen 2 weeks after the games in all the same venues. It's actually the third largest sporting event in the world. Like I had this script that I said to everybody
Yeah.
because they didn't understand. And, and then fast forward to 2000, 14, and then 2000 or 2012, 2014, 12 was for basketball in London. London was a big marker. London did it great. London made Paralympian names household names. There were billboards, that was a big one. I remember being shook, like we're getting somewhere. And then 2014, and then, going forward to 2016, 2018, it just feels like every games we've made some advances. And I will say, on like a global level, we're making great advances, but every games that are held in a country makes a significant difference in that community, right? Like,
Mm.
I mean, I remember in China the shift that happened towards people with disabilities after they held the Paralympics was, monumental. They were like, "Oh, people with disabilities actually do have something to offer, and they are athletic," and like, a whole mind shift. So I'm not
Right.
discounting that, but anyways, fast forward to 2024, Paris, it felt like you said, like glass ceiling shattering, because the way that they embraced the Paralympics and held the same standards up for Paralympians in a lot of the same ways, and the venues, and just the way that the Paralympics were managed and handled felt really elite.
Mm.
It felt really great to be managed on that level, I think, for a lot of the athletes. And I wasn't competing at those games, so I can't speak from that perspective. But as the host of the first ever Team USA house, which, for those that are listening that don't know what that is, it's a hospitality venue that's on site. It was actually at Palais Brongniart. I was
Oh.
always like saying that, which was it was originally commissioned by Napoleon as the stock exchange. So it's this beautiful building, big oak columns, Team USA, branded everything. We had this beautiful stage, all the TVs. When I was a Paralympian, literally during the games, I would be just searching anywhere I could find to watch live events. And next thing
Yeah.
you know, I'm in Paris at Team USA House watching live events all day. I was like in heaven. I was like, and then all my friends, all the Paralympians were there. I had the great honor of doing post win interviews with the medalists. We did what's called the Order of Ecos ceremonies,
Mm.
which is a medal that each athlete can give to a coach or a support staff to honor their contribution to their medal. And like I cried like every day.
Oh, how could you not?
It was
How
so
could you not?
important, like moms and coaches and all the things. But
Oh.
yeah, I mean, it was incredible to have that energy and to share that, and really just celebrate how far the Paralympics have come.
Yeah, because I'm again from very much sort of the outside looking in, it felt like, whoa, and this is like I'm so excited people are still talking about this,
Yeah.
and like I had covered the Olympics and there was no drop off in the conversations that I was having of like, here's what's happening in the Paralympics right now. Did you see who won this medal or who competed here or whatever it was? And it was like amazing. This is so long overdue. It's so
Hmm.
long overdue. How does a moment like Paris for a Paralympian, which I know you weren't competing, but you know the struggle. I mean, it's Olympic and Paralympic athletes have very similar struggles in trying to find sponsorships and in paying to be an elite athlete, figuring out how to make that work year in and year out, because there's not a lot of them that have, there's World Cups and there's tours, but it's hard to watch the time zones, like all these things are really, it's so much different than like a basketball or a soccer or on the men's side of football, whatever it is. So, how does a moment like Paris affect a Paralympian's ability to continue to do their sport?
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of times there's the chosen ones, right? It's the highlighted athletes, it's the Tara and Hunter show, it's the, Jessica Long, it's the
Mm-hmm.
media really grabs onto certain Paralympians. And then, the ones that haven't quite made it yet and that are truly struggling to get to a place, even if they win gold medals, it doesn't. I mean, after I won a gold medal in Beijing, I didn't get any contracts. I didn't sign anything until I won my second and third gold medal in my second sport. And then I
Mm,
signed with Nike and Visa and AT&T and T and all the things. But it's still very much a struggle for like 95% of the Paralympic
yeah.
population. And one of the cool things that happened going into Paris was Toyota being the mobility sponsor of the games. They actually sponsored each Paralympian in the United States. It was incredible
Wow.
to see that support go to every Paralympian, not just the chosen ones. And so I think a lot of momentum is building in the States around supporting Paralympians. But truly, like I'm currently kind of supporting a Paralympic hopeful that is trying to make it to Milan in 2026. She's a ski racer. And she's just like, I don't want to struggle anymore. Like, I want health insurance. I want to get a job and like be able to get a house one day. And like, it's just like this
Yeah,
really, and so I know that it's worth it in some regards. And I respect people that don't want to do that struggle. Um,
for sure.
but Paris, the way that it happened, I think it provided hope for a lot of people, I think. And LA 28 being in our home turf, I think is going to be a great games for the Paralympians in the United States, for sure.
Yeah. I cannot wait for LA 2028. And thank you very much for this segue because I know that Paralympic surfing is not in the Paralympics yet, but there is movement to try and get it into the Paralympics. So maybe 2032. First woman who got a perfect 10. Are we also going to pursue maybe a third Paralympic sport if surfing makes it in?
Well, I get that question a lot, and I would love to say yes, but my division, which is women's wave ski, is very small and probably would
Mm,
not be included in the games, regardless of whether it was accepted into the Paralympics in 2032. I'm on the board for LA 28 and have tried to spearhead the movement of getting um, parasurfing into the games, and I'm still working on that very much for 2032. But it was never with the motivation. I mean, I would love to. I would Kelly Slater it all day. I would get out there and compete, but as it's set up right now, you have to have gender equity in each
yeah.
division, and we just don't have the numbers for women's wave ski. Anybody watching this that wants to skate, like wave ski, please join us. We would love that. Would love to have full divisions, and um, yeah, it's a special sport because for those that don't know wave ski, I'm sitting on a surfboard strapped in at the waist. I use a kayak paddle to propel myself onto a wave and then use the paddle to kind of cut up and down the face of the wave. But it's a
And
lot,
or get barreled.
and
And
or
or
get
get
barreled
barreled.
and get a 10.
That's how she got the perfect 10 in Huntington. No big deal.
Thank you. Excuse my voice. Yeah, it was, I mean, that day was incredible. The conditions were pristine and just recently was on one of my friends' podcasts for Stoked for Life, and uh, he was talking about that perfect 10. And I was explaining how much surfing experience goes into that moment actually coming together for someone. And it took 10 solid years of me learning everything there is to know about what surfing is and how to catch a wave and what to do when you're on it and how it feels to be in that zone. And, all the things had to come together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when people talk about getting barreled being magical, I mean, I was only in there for like a 2 seconds or one second, but like that moment was the culmination of 10 years of all of this experience, and it was perfect. I loved it.
It's still, I mean, I've surfed my whole life and it is like this constant elusive carrot that you're just like, and once you get one, there's no satisfying this thirst to get barreled. Like it's simply, I've never met a surfer who's like, ah, yeah,
It's
I've been
fine.
barreled enough. I think I'm okay. No, like everybody's constantly on this search to get barreled, and it's just I'm so stoked that it all came together on that day with that much attention for that to be not only for you personally, but for the surfing community to see that happen in that sort of arena and with that much attention, I think is so massive for para surfing as a whole. And obviously it's a sport that's near and dear to my heart, and
Hmm.
it's a way that I know, like, I just went to the Access Surf event in Hawaii, which is an incredible organization that I know was pivotal in getting you in the water. And the Eddie winner, Luke Shepherdson, was out there getting people on their first waves, helping them stand up. And there's just, you combine the magic of the ocean with like the power of a wave and feeling weightless for somebody who physically and emotionally, I think often feels weighed down by just what it takes for
Hmm.
life. And it's an experience that if you are interested in getting involved in parasurfing on a personal level, do it. If you want to go volunteer, be a part of it, because this
Hmm.
is it's changing lives, and
Hmm.
it changes mine every time I go, and it's incredible. So it's just so fun to see you in this next phase of athletic pursuit, because I have no doubt that whether you are putting the medal around somebody's neck or getting it put on yours, like, you're going to make a difference in the parasurfing community.
Thank you, friend. And thank you for being an
Yeah.
ally. Thank you for being somebody that knows what that feeling is like, because
Mm,
as you were mentioning earlier, like we just don't have the coverage. We don't have, and I want everybody to know, like the resilience that the spirit that humans come to the ocean with, that they just, it's on another level. It's so inspiring.
yeah.
I used to hate the word inspiring. I felt like it was really like condescending. And now I embrace it so much because I am inspired by my fellow adaptive surfers. I am that
Yeah.
inspiration for people, and I'm so grateful to do that. It's such an honor.
Yeah. Such a cool full circle moment. Well, I could talk to you forever, but I know we have to keep going on this podcast because we're going to move into our next segment, and this is called Something to Sip On. It is brought to you by the Sports Bra, which is the first women's sports bar in the world, and it is in Portland, Oregon. So the week of your episode, Elena, they are going to have a mocktail of your choice that is called the Elena. So
Uh,
I want to know, what are you sipping on? What is our like post surf, yeah, what is our post surf cerveza?
oh my God, what an honor. And I love that it's a mocktail. I very often go into bars and wish they had more options. So, um, okay. Okay, so I do love, so you asked what the cerveza is. If it is a beer, I'm going with a Heineken Double Zero,
Mm,
because it's just light and refreshing. It's really nice. Some microbrews do a non-alcoholic beer, which sometimes is really great. I also just saw this really great advertisement for the 805 with Lakey Peterson. I mean,
yep.
I would love that. Okay, but if it's a mocktail, I'm going with like a citrusy, bubbly, like a little bit of sweetness. I'm like not trying to add extra
Mm.
sugar into my life. I usually just go with like, honestly. So please ask the women at the sports bra to get like creative with like a soda water citrus
Ooh.
situation and get back to
Okay,
me.
so
Yeah,
so much freedom for the
yeah,
sports bar, which is great because they have some of the best bartenders and they have the best food. If you're ever in Portland, you have to go. It's one of my favorite
for sure.
places. Like I will literally take a trip to Portland just to go to the sports bra for some event or activation or just to get dinner. It's so good. Okay, and then our last segment is called the Powered Up segment. This is where we go rapid fire questions. So I'm just gonna ask you questions and give me your first instinct, okay?
Okay,
Okay. Coffee or tea?
coffee,
Favorite ice cream flavor?
coffee.
What is your go-to meal after surfing?
Oh, I mean, if I have the opportunity, I'm getting seafood. I'm probably going with like mahi mahi, beautifully like encrusted mahi mahi rice pilaf situation.
Oh my gosh, making me hungry. Are you a night owl or an early bird?
Night owl.
What is the favorite place your sport has taken you? Feel free to choose any of your sports.
Oh man. Okay. Can I just say two because the Italian Alps for ski racing blew my mind sitting at the top of those, just thinking like, wow. Um, and then uh, one of my favorite memories of surfing was in the Canary Islands off the coast of Fuerteventura. The right was breaking perfectly, and the sun was coming up over a volcano, and I was just like, how is this my life? The moon was out. I don't know. It was magical.
Oh, that sounds magical. What is your favorite dessert?
Uh, Probably like a really decadent chocolate cake type
Ooh,
thing.
same. I'm a chocolate girl. Dream vacation spot.
Well, it would probably be somewhere warm and surfing. I've never actually been to Fiji. I would probably
Oh,
go there. Yeah.
we got, you know what? I'll just meet you in Fiji.
Can you
How's that
just meet
sound?
me there?
Let's just go meet in Fiji at some point because you would love swimming pools. It is my favorite wave on the planet. It's a
Oh, yay.
beautiful right. And it's called swimming pools because it's like 20 feet between you and the coral, but it looks like it's right below you. The water's so clear. It is like it's my favorite place on the world. What is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Well, I was going to say this earlier, and it wasn't necessarily advice, but it's a quote that's always stuck with me. We alluded to it. It's a Chinese proverb that said, "Jump and the net will appear." And that's
Mm,
really something I've relied on throughout my life.
I love that. And then the last question is it has been an honor to have you on the Powerful Podcast. What does powerful mean to you?
I guess powerful is being true to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and having the bravery to be true to yourself, being exactly who you are authentically and uh and standing in that power.
Hmm. I love that. Well, that is a bravery that you have shown time and time again, both publicly and personally, and it has just been an honor to be have our lives thread together a few times in the last decade, and I hope many, many more.
For sure. I'll see you in PG.
I'll see you in Fiji. Let's plan the trip, babe.
I'm into it. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on here. Thank you, Powerful Pod Squad. We'll be back next week. Have a good one. This is a reminder to check us out every Tuesday, everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoy this and don't want to miss an episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button.